Chief here. Cameraman's out again. Last week I ended up talking about KP with Refrigerator Perry. So let's go to my first KP. I was within 2 weeks of after getting assigned to the company that I got KP, and it was an all-day affair. I think we were pulled out of right after doing PT and basically told to get cleaned up and report to the chow hall. So the 10, 12 of us, I don't remember how many, we get down to the chow hall and they feed us breakfast first because they said, you're going to be busy for the next few hours. They were not kidding. So we got done with breakfast, we went into the back, and then they went down the line and looked at me and said, you got pots and pans. Whew. I had a room to myself. I had 3 walls around, or all 4 walls around it. The greater share of them were glass, and one of them had a doorway out into the kitchen area. So, and I had 2 double sink, I had a few racks, and I already had a stack of pots and pans in there. I'm talking about the big pots and pans, the ones that they always exaggerate in cartoons and stuff like that. Never saw such large skillets, large pans, and large lids. And of course, only one item at a time seemed to fit in the sink at once. And then once and occasionally I'd get a cook saying, well, I want that pot or I want that pan over there, wash it next, because I had a drying rack. So as soon as I rinsed it, sink area only had room enough for a couple items, but I had like a big drying rack, so I was putting pots and pans in there. And then as soon as I put the pots and pans in there, they would get taken up again, and sometimes they were thrown back at me during the same thing. Sorry, I gotta wet my whistle here. So did breakfast, sweated a lot, had to go through I don't know how many sinkfuls of water because water got greasy. I had trash cans out back, so if there was excess food in there, I was told to go scrape it out and put it back in these trash cans that they had, and they had to deal with a local pig farmer. This pig farmer would come every other day or even every day to get all these trash cans. And I'm talking about the galvanized trash can, the 55-gallon trash cans, and just full of wasted army food or government food. At least they weren't throwing it away, which was a good thing. So we got done with breakfast dishes, and then we were basically told, your break is dependent on you. And they said your break can be short or your break can be long depending on how well you do your job. It's like nobody was really going to come out and help you, at least not as far as the kitchen staff. So got done with breakfast dishes and had a little break, and then of course they fed us lunch prior to the guys getting there. I was a little upset they didn't fire up the grill for us. They didn't make us hamburgers, because when you went through the chow hall, they would fire up the grill, and of course they would make hamburgers, but if the hamburgers were not done, you could not wait in line. So therefore, if you went by the grill and hamburgers were just thrown on the grill, you could not stand there and wait. The drill sergeants would just tap you on the shoulder and tell you to keep on moving, So hamburgers were hit or miss. So we were a little upset they didn't fire up the grill for us, but oh well, we got a little bit of good extra food. And lunch was just about as bad as breakfast dishes. I mean, lots of sinks full of hot water, sweating, had towels. I don't know how many aprons I went through, wiping all the grime and everything off of me and throwing all the excess food into these trash cans and watching them fill up, because I wasn't the only one throwing stuff inside the trash cans. And had a little break in the afternoon before they started cooking the evening meal. And the evening meal was the worst because it seemed, they had to do prep work, because that's where I found out about mermites. So I was in the middle of doing dishes, or my pots and pans, in the for the evening meal, and back door opened up, and drill sergeant from a different company steps in, and he's got these green containers about so tall. I don't know if you can get me all this. I need a cameraman, but they're about the good size of your typical cooler, but they're a little bit narrower than a cooler. And I go, drill sergeant, what are these? He goes, these are mermites. And I'm like thinking, did he say termites or mermites? And I go, excuse me, drill sergeant, what are they? He says, well, open them up and find out. Well, mermites are a way to get hot chow out to the soldiers in the field. They're basically hollow on the inside with lots of insulation. Well, not really a lot, but some insulation. And there's a fill line. They boil water, put it into the fill line, and then there's these 3 containers that slide side by side in there. And that's all the hot food. So between the hot water and the hot food, hopefully it stays hot enough until the last soldier is served, which no, never does. It cools very rapidly. So there's 3 containers, 3 lids, and then the mermite case itself, and then the mermite lid. So there's 8 pieces to each of these mermites that I had to clean. There's about 6 of them. So, and of course drill sergeant came in, I think sometime during the evening. He says, you guys got to hurry up because you got to get it back to the barracks before lights out, because you guys got to take a shower and all that. We don't want you going to bed stinky and all that. So we did get a treat in the afternoon. They brought out a box of ice cream sandwiches for us guys. They said we were doing a good job, but they probably said that to every group that was there, because ice cream was also hit or miss too. It wasn't always available for lunch or dinner. I remember that ice cream was few and far in between. I guess they didn't want to give us too many treats while we were there. So that was KP, and like I said, my other KP was I got pulled out of the field, and that's where Refrigerator Perry pulled out the box of raspberry. Yes, sweetheart, I got my dog here down here. She's putting her head on my lap saying, I want attention. You're talking, but you're not talking to me. No, I'm not. So that was a fun time. And then we also had to do the breakfast dishes, and then we had to get cleaned up and go out to the field that day, second one, and everybody had camouflaged their face and their hands that day. So by the time we got out there, our group didn't have to do that because they were already busy crawling in the sand, making a groove with their steel pot with their rifle up on your top of your wrist so you don't get your weapon dirty and crawling around. And they want us with our head on the side. Oh, we want to see a trench made out of that steel pot as you're crawling through this sand. So I spent the rest of the day, and of course, drill sergeant or 2 would come by and are like, why aren't you camouflaged? I said, I was on KP this morning. I wasn't out here when you guys did that. They're like, oh, okay. So as far as basic training, I really don't know what to talk about, week to week, because it's not like I remember what we did from week to week. So I'm just going to pull stories about events. So what I'd like to talk about next is the gas chamber. Oh, gosh. We went by platoons, so the first 2 platoons of our company, they marched out there in the morning, and we marched out there and got there in time to eat lunch. So the gas chamber room was already saturated with the CS gas tablets that they burn. And so we were told, eat lunch. I did not eat lunch. I did tear apart my MRE to where it was just down to its basic containers, so it'd be easy for me just to eat after I got done with the gas chamber. But everybody else in my platoon was eating away, and the drill sergeants were making sure that the soldiers were keeping an eye on their weapons and everything. And they snatched a few weapons, because drill sergeants always like to snatch a few weapons and make some guy do some push-ups because you weren't watching your weapon. Well, I'm busy trying to eat stuff in my face. So like I said, I didn't eat, and I was in, I think, the second group to stand to go through the chamber. They just pulled names randomly. Would you quit bumping the thing, sweetheart? And she's bumping my tripod, trying to get my attention. So like I said, I was in the second group to go through the gas chamber, and while I was standing there getting our instructions of how to go into the gas chamber, several cars pulled up. And out of these several cars are a bunch of naval officers with their wives and or sweethearts with them. And I'm like, what in the Sam heck are they coming out here to look at a bunch of guys throw up for? Because that's basically all we're doing, is just getting gassed and being made fun of and throwing up. But They came out to look at it, like, hey, sweetheart, how about let's go watch some army guys puke today? That sounds like fun. They watched. I got to throw up on some shoes. I'll talk about that in a minute. So we're standing there. They stripped us down to only our BDUs and our gas mask carrier and our gas mask on to put on our head when we were instructed to go into the chamber. So my turn to go in. I'm the second to the last man to go in, and we get into this room, and the first man is told to start. We're told to halt and then do a right face into the room, and there I am, looking down at the table with the little bowl with the little tablets, and I could see the remains of other tablets about 5 to 6 feet away from me. I'm standing right in front of this, and I'm like, crap, aren't I lucky? So we got our mask on. I think we look up, we look down, we look to the side a few times. I think we did a couple jumping jacks, and they said, did anybody break their seal, or do you smell gas? Nobody had any problems, so the drill sergeants are like, fine, okay, listen to our instructions. We're going to have you all together take your mask off. We want you to state your full name, last name, first name, middle name, your rank, and I think your last 4 of our social. And then stand there. Nobody move after that. You'll be given instructions, but you'll have your mask off at this time. So, instructions given, we all rip our mask off. Last name, first name, middle name, PFC. I'm not going to say my social. And I had taken a breath, so I'm like talking, so my breath is going out. I still got part of it, and I'm like, I'm holding my breath. I'm not breathing in, I'm not breathing out, I'm holding my breath. The guy to my right, the last man in the formation, panics. He doesn't even get a full step away before the drill sergeant grabs him by his shoulders, puts him back in the formation, and said, what are you, the typical chewing out, what are you doing, soldier, failure to follow instructions, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm tired of holding my breath, so I go, what a mistake. Blew out the last of my air. I'm still trying to hold my breath. Meanwhile, the drill sergeant's still yelling at this guy. We all got our mask off. I'm 5 to 6 feet away from this curling smoke. Like I said, this room was already saturated. I have to breathe in. I breathe in. Oh, I got lungfuls of that stuff inside my lungs. Well, about that time, as soon as I got the lungfuls, I started to cough a little, from what I can remember. We were finally given a left face, proceed out the door. We came in one door, exited out another door. Well, the exit door is like about 2 or 3 steps before it hangs left, as far as the sidewalk goes. Also, if you don't hang a left, there's a fully grown tree planted about that thick around at the level of your head. This tree's been here a long time. So if you ran out the back door or the door of the gas chamber and you just went willy-nilly out, you would smack into that tree and probably knock yourself out. Nobody did that day. I was quite surprised. And I can't remember if they said, look out for that tree. So, like I said, I'm the second to the last man to come out, the guy behind me. So, and we're also told when you get outside, flap your arms because that helps open your lungs and helps you breathe. So, it's only a small sidewalk. Like I said, it hangs to the left. So, I get out. Through blurry eyes, I see the big tree. Sweetheart, please. I see the big through my blurry eyes, I see this tree. And I'm looking down, my nostrils are just draining, I'm spitting up, I'm throwing up a little bit. Excuse me. And it's just like, Terrible. Kind of wish I had my cold at that time. It would have drained my whole my whole entire system. So while I'm looking down, I see shiny shoes, shiny black shoes, shiny black shoes of one of those naval guys. Can't say I purposely aimed for him, but it did make me cock my head to the side, and I threw up on some Navy officer's shoes. Didn't get in trouble for it. He was a dummy standing out by the back door. So after walking around, running around in a circle for a while, you know, flapping your arms, you know, you're finally done with all this CS gassed out of your system, and I sat down and ate lunch. Everybody that came in out of that chamber after me, they're like, "Hey, you got lunch? Where did you get that?" I said, "Well, I didn't eat before we went in, so that's why I still got my food." I said, "I knew we were coming today. You guys are the dummies for eating your food beforehand." And everybody just kept coming over to me. "Can I have a bite of that?" And I'm like, "No." So I was about the only one that went back to the barracks, marched back to the barracks that day with a full belly. And a little bit later on, 2/3 of my company was Army Reserve. 2/3 of my training company was Army Reserve. So one Saturday, it was on a Saturday, like I said, we gave up our Saturdays because we were a rush company to get done in a shorter period of time. So one Saturday, all the reservists had to march back out and go through the chamber a second time because they were told, "Yeah, you guys sometimes get called up to quell riots, and a lot of CS gas is thrown." So they went a second time, and they came back bragging about how they handled it so much better, and we're all like, "Yeah, right, whatever." Well, if I'm looking at my timer, and it looks like I've talked for quite a bit, so it's time to say goodbye. That's, like I said, that's KP. It was fun. Kept guy away from the drill sergeants for almost a whole day. And the gas chamber, like I said, was a riot. Like I said, I was the only one that went home with a full belly because I was smart. So this is Chief. See you next week. I'll think of some other topics that I need to talk about, but Chief signing out. So see you next week.